A very good evening to everyone present here. My name is Diva Punjabi. I'm a student from Metrishkal Vidyalaya, Mumbai, and I welcome you to this debate presented by the Pinkish Foundation, which I will be moderating. Today, we're here to discuss what is a very relevant topic in this day and age: whether women make better political leaders than men. In the past years, there has been immense progress in our nation's drive for gender equality. However, politics is a field yet dominated by men. Is this justified? Is it fair? Or is it simply misogyny? Let's find out in this intriguing debate. We have 8 young students from several parts of India who will share their views on this topic. The motion states women make better political leaders than men. The team in favor of the motion consists of 4 speakers: Anamitraa Jaiswal from Shivnadar School, Noida; Arunavah Borah from Cotton University; Deeksha Tanwar from National Institute of Fashion Technology; and Mariya Abbas from Shivnadar School, Noida. While the team against the motion comprises of Kaushal Singh from Manikchand Pahade Law College, Azma from Isabella Thorburn College, Tushmi Upadhyay from Delhi Public School, and Priyansh Yajnik from Holy Cross School. We will be following a standard debate pattern, which is as follows. First, each member of both the teams gets to voice their opinions. We will invite one member from the for team, followed by one member from the against team. This will be spread over 4 rounds, giving all the members an opportunity to share their views. The first speaker of each team will have 4 minutes to share their views, and the next speakers are allowed 3 minutes. Following this, there will be a rebuttal round in which members can question the opposing team. Without any further ado, let us commence with the debate. To start off, I'd like to call Anamitraa Jaiswal of the team in favor to begin. Anamitraa, you have 4 minutes starting now.
Thank you, Diva. So, feminism isn't about making women strong. Women are already strong. It's about changing the narrative as to how the world perceives this strength. A very good day to everyone. I'm Anamitraa Jaiswal, a student of Shiv Nadu School, Noida, an 11th grader, and I would like to speak for the motion that women can make better political leaders. We live in a patriarchal and a patrilineal society where the power has always been in the hands of the men. They have exercised that power for years now and shall continue if we do not raise our voice and discuss how women can be great political leaders. For a woman to be a great leader, she is somehow accepted to adapt to the characteristics of a man. She is often forced to leave her individuality behind and become someone who she isn't. Society is still not ready to accept and consider women as leaders. And this is evident since only 11% of women are in politics, even after 74 years of independence. But when women come into politics, they can bring about changes in the social system that will benefit the greater population of the country. Only 59.3% of women in India are literate as compared to 78.8% of men. Low literacy rate is due to lack of available educational services and due to bad infrastructure. Not only that, women do not have access to sanitation and proper healthcare services. Therefore, when women will come into politics, they will get a chance to relate to these problems and bring about the much needed positive change. Women can wear many hats and multitask. At a greater level, this will not only help the country in focusing on the various issues, but manage them all in a manner that they will become a reality. Because women can walk the talk. When we look at Germany, wherein the Chancellor Angela Merkel, in a rare display of emotions, urged the German electorate to embrace the diversity and forge for a common future. She brought in the much needed stability in Germany. This truly depicts that women are peacekeepers, and when they come into politics with their quality and character traits of empathy and nurturing attitude, they can enable to build a strong and understanding relationship between countries and communities. Harvard Business School review has also conquered that women make more efficient leaders than men. Now that we have established that women make great leaders, let's talk about the working in politics. Since time immemorial, history has given us strong women political leaders, be it Rani Lakshmi Bai, Razia Sultan, crowned the ruler of Delhi Sultanate over her brothers, or Noor Jahan, who was the main, Indira Gandhi, Princess Diana, Hillary Clinton, etc. But recently, political leaders have shown effectively that they can handle crisis much more efficiently than others. And the examples are Taiwan President Tsai Ing-wen, or Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen, or Icelandic Prime Minister Katrin Jacob-Dottir, or German Chancellor Angela Merkel, or New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern. Now, when we look at countries with female leaders, they have handled the battle of COVID in a better manner and crisis. Even after such astounding performances, we have only a few women in politics around the world. Majorly because we are still in a patriarchal society where men still rule the world. It's high time we make space for women in politics, not with any tokenistic gestures, but by challenging and changing this 36 inch ki aanchi, 36 inch ki chhati hyper masculine way in which politics works. In the end, I would like to say by saying that women and politics is a combination like none other and rather much needed. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anamitraa. Those were some amazing points you put forward. Coming in next from the opposing team, we have Kaushal Singh. Kaushal, you have the floor for 4 minutes. Kaushal, you're not audible. No, not yet. I suppose Kaushal is having some technical issues. So till then, we can move on. I invite Arunavah Borah speaking in favor of the motion. Arunavah, you have 3 minutes. You may begin.
Good evening, everyone. This is Arunavah Borah, a student of English Literature from Cotton University, Guwahati, Assam. Today, I stand firmly in favor of the motion that women do make better political leaders. Gender can never be a factor that determines or hinders someone's worth in making a great leader. And more rightly so, women have the zeal to change a society and make the world a better place for everyone to live in. History has stood witness to women's brilliance in politics since time immemorial, from starting from Queen Elizabeth to Mary Antoinette in the world, followed by Indira Gandhi, Sarojini Naidu, and Annie Besant, who have influenced the women's suffrage in India, followed by Indira Gandhi, Sonia Gandhi, Sarojini Naidu, etc. However, um, there's a we as a society fail to accomplish and analyze women's potential in the political field. Women are not encouraged enough to take up leadership roles, are not thought of deserving of taking as human rights, and are not encouraged to take opportunities, are not given proper resources, education, etc. Thus, I want to say that women have the capacity to make great leaders, but we as a society have to make changes and acceptance at our end to give them the proper education and right resources to perform better and to make the great leaders. Statistics prove that women make better leaders than men because they are more empathetic, take every action into account before delivering and concluding any speech or proposing any proposition and decisions. Therefore, we as a society need to give women the proper rights, proper opportunities, proper resources, and make them capable, make them equal to men, and give them equal opportunities and make them more deserving of human rights. So this is how women can take the World Forum by charge. Thus, I want to conclude that women do make women better political leaders if given the right support, right resources, right education, etc. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arunava. Our next participant is Azma Junaid, who is speaking against the motion. Azma, you have the floor for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Diva. Good evening, everyone. This is Azma Junaid, and I'm from Isabella Tobin College, Lucknow. And I completely stand against the topic because I don't think so that women are better political leaders than men. See, leadership is a role that comes up with great deal of responsibilities that requires dedication, skill, and the very most important fact that is time. There are certain jobs where one gender is usually better than the other because of physical or physiological differences, and I think that political leadership is one of them. And I've got certain points to back my choice. Males are, generally, straight to the point. They tend to get to the point quicker than the females counterparts. Male tend to focus on the problem directly and associate perception with action better than females. And they are really clarity oriented because they believe associated with strong hierarchical structure because they believe that such an approach would ensure effective delegation of thoughts and responsibilities. We have a leader is someone who's very emotionally stable and prone to emotionalism, but women are really emotional and sometimes they fail to take difficult difficult choices. There have been discussions whether hormonal changes affect the mood of females at their workplace. I would like to take this opportunity to clear that men and women, both face hormonal changes, and they may affect their mood and their behaviors towards their colleagues. They may be burnout, they may be stressed, they may be frustrated. However, yes, a study reveals that women, reflect those, mood swings and behaviors in their work. Um, if the survey done by Forbes to be believed, 75% of women consider that male are better leaders than females. If you think, if you ask anyone to think about a great leader, 99% chances are that they'd think of a male. If you look back in history, there the great leaders who brought social economic reforms are all male leaders, from Mahatma Gandhi to Nelson Mandela to Abraham Lincoln. They all have been males. And the fact that females themselves consider males as better leaders is proved by the fact by the previous US presidential election, where a female leader lost to a male leader. And if you look at the other end of the spectrum, there are hardly any female leaders, who brought great socio-economic reforms in the country. And one of my fellow participants, mentioned about honesty, that female leaders are honest. So I would like to give you an example of the Myanmar icon of democracy, Aung San Suu Kyi, who was, detained by the military on, if the news and the reports are to be believed, it was because of election fraud. So I just want to say that females even find it hard to balance their professional as well as personal life because they suffer from periods. Everyone they have cramps, they have PMS, and they tend to be more irregular as compared to the male counterparts. They are more relationship oriented, and that may adversely affect their work. And a position such as a political leader, we cannot afford to be irregular at work or to be distracted. And therefore, I end my speech by saying that men are better political leaders than women. Thank you.
Thank you, Azma. Those were certainly interesting points you put across. Kaushal, could you try to see if you're audible now?
Yeah, hi, am I audible?
Yes, you are. Kaushal, you can go ahead. You have the floor for 4 minutes.
Thank you. A very hearty good evening to one and all present here. Feminism as a political movement was bound to fail since its inception. A very hearty good evening. I'm Kaushal Singh from Manikchand Pahade Law College, Aurangabad, to oppose the motion being currently debated. When we question the integrity, the leadership of women leaders, there are textbook examples to prove that women leadership since its inception in any part of the world, irrespective of the cultural, regional, and social diversity, is bound to fail. Taking example from India itself, because as they say, charity begins from home. The darkest period of Indian democracy came under a women leader, Madam Indira Gandhi, when the emergency was imposed from 1975 to 77, with roughly 9 lakh people being put behind the bars. What about the first Indian women president, Pratibha Devi Singh Patil, under whose presidentship India saw the 26/11 brutal attacks with cold-blooded murders of roughly 170 people, and she's stalling the death sentence of the lone terrorist captured alive, Ajmal Kasab. Now, bringing it to a global level. Here, a lot of people quoted the Harvard Tribunal study, which stated that women are more integral when compared to men as leaders. Well, let me draw your attention to Latin America, where the women presidents of Peru, Argentina, and Brazil were collectively involved in siphoning off funds equivalent to 730 million US dollars, which resulted in the biggest corruption scandal known as Operation Car Wash. What about integrity? And let me quote Madam Hillary Clinton, who was the 2016 US presidential candidate from the Democrats Party. What did she say when she was serving as the Secretary of State? She said that the biggest challenge to women in power are women themselves. That means here you have a women leader accepting that women are not bound to follow women leadership. Rather, when we talk about countries where national security and protection of the nation state becomes a key for nation states like Israel and India, Prime Minister Golda Meir, who was the first woman Prime Minister of Israel and till date has been the only woman to serve as the Prime Minister of Israel, stated, and I quote her from the book Rise and Kill First, where she stated that I have zero knowledge about national security and defense, and I blindly rely on my defense minister's advice for that. Now, what is that all about? That categorically shows that in irrespective fields, whether it be finance, whether it be economic prosperity, or for that matter, being defense or national security, women leadership is bound to fail. For that matter, the same Harvard study, which is being quoted here, has not taken into account regional diversity by creating studies or doing such studies in sub-Saharan African countries or South Asian, Southeastern nation states for that matter. In fact, we have to understand that when we talk about international politics and international cohesion for that matter, the UN Women, a women-led and women-created body, also reports to the United Nations Secretary General's office. Well, how many women have served at the United Nations Secretary General? A big zero. That also showcases that at an international political level as well, we are not ready to accept the leadership of women. So when we club all of this together, we come to and draw out a very simple conclusion that women leadership can never be accepted, at least from the part of world where we come in. And when it comes to the European and to the Western world, there stands to be a lot of cohesion because a woman is being pitched against a woman for candidature of senior offices. Thus, to end, I would like to quote that very famous song that it is a man's world, because women can serve as good followers, but when it comes to leadership, political gambits are surely not their bit. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kaushal. That was great. Moving on from the team in favor, we have Deeksha Tanwar. Deeksha, you may begin.
Thank you, Diva. Leadership is one's ability to influence others to achieve common goals. To accomplish this, a leader needs to possess skills that can effectively communicate goals, motivate others, help others improve, and give support when needed. Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, and the non binary. I am Deeksha Tanwar, a design student at NIFT, and today I'll be speaking for the motion. In a study that examined gender and leadership styles, researchers found that compared to male leaders, female leaders are more likely to tend to follow one's personal needs and be open to new ideas and others' opinions. On the other hand, male leaders are statistically more likely to only stress meeting the standards, wait until problems become more severe before attending to them, and or withdraw or be absent during critical junctures. Furthermore, they also show that females are less narcissistic than males. Thus, female leaders tend to adopt democratic or participative style and a less autocratic or directive style than men. The global pandemic and increasing instability around the world have shown up stark lines of division between countries, particularly with regards to gender. Global statistics quickly reveal that the countries with the most effective coronavirus responses have one thing in common: a woman at the helm. The public have higher standards of women politicians. They want them to be strong and make hard decisions, but they want them to be maternal as well. Moreover, we all know how women are known to be more emotionally vulnerable. Well, when leaders show their vulnerability, they tend to be more respected and admired for being honest and become authentic and real. Then, if females are such great leaders, why are there still less female leaders across all levels? In another study conducted, female leaders were found to have the tendency to underestimate their leadership abilities. Of course, it is reductive to broadly claim that women make better leaders than men, but the evidence so far is compelling. Numerous studies by the Harvard Business Review have shown that women scored at a statistically higher level than men on the majority of leadership competencies that were measured. Where women do lag behind, the research shows is in confidence levels. Other social and cultural facts can also lead to such an outcome. Well, for political representation, parity between women and men is the goal. Parity which mirrors that half of the society are women. Whether we talk about health, peace and security, digitalization and technology, economy and finance, or leadership and development, convening women leaders who have the drive and the influence can trigger positive changes and progress. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deeksha. Next up is Tushmi Upadhyay speaking against the motion. Tushmi, you may begin.
Good evening, everyone. I am Tushmi Upadhyay, a student of DPS Bangalore East, and I will be speaking against the motion. Gender should not be a deciding factor in whether a person can be or cannot be a great leader. An individual's leadership abilities depend on their personality traits and strengths. A lot of the previous participants have talked about the fact that women tend to have certain ingrained qualities that make them better leaders. But if you examine the behavior of male leaders throughout history, have these qualities not been observed in them? Take an example of B.R. Ambedkar, who presided over the drafting committee of the Indian Constitution. That very constitution, which is considered one of the world's most well written and inclusive constitutions. Then there have been other great figures like Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, the Iron Man of India, and Mahatma Gandhi, the father of our nation. Talking about male leaders in present times, the government of Uttar Pradesh, under the leadership of Yogi Adityanath, was even praised by the WHO for its exemplary management strategy during the pandemic. So, although we can say that women might naturally come to possess certain traits that make them good leaders, we cannot say that these traits are exclusive to them. Our gender and our personality will ultimately determine our style of leadership. But all of the best leadership skills work equally well whether a man or a woman is the one using them. When we say something like women make better political leaders, we end up undermining the credibility of men by indicating that they are not capable of developing these skills. Next, I would like to address a point emphasized by my fellow participants, saying that women heads of governments have won plaudits for decisive leadership during the pandemic. Although this is true, it is also a fact that it is hard to judge patterns when women leaders are still such a small sample in comparison to their male counterparts. It is just a myth that one female leader changes society, said Michelle Harrison, leader of the public division of company that runs Reykjavik Index surveys, which assess attitudes towards female leaders in the G7 countries. She further elaborated, saying that it is unrealistic to expect a single leader to create sweeping changes around gender roles. Finally, coming to the topic of women representation in politics. For this, we need to look at the holistic approach and need to understand that women do need equal representation and equal opportunities to get to higher positions in the government. But while there is a need to promote this gender equality, the fact remains that this belief does not validate the motion or mean that women are better leaders. Thank you.
These are some great views being brought up. Thank you, Tushmi. As our seventh participant, I invite Mariya Abbas to speak for the motion.
Thank you, Deva. The world's most prominent women leaders show the importance of honesty, courage, impact, and decisive action in leadership. Oprah Winfrey. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mariya Abbas. I study in grade 11 at the Shiv North School, Noida. I'm here to present my thoughts in affirmation of the motion, Women Make Better Political Leaders. This quote by Oprah Winfrey manages to give a gist of my debate today. Firstly, I would give a brief of what are the qualities of a good political leader. Secondly, what such qualities do women possess? And thirdly, evidences and statistics to prove that women are better political leaders. Now, what defines a good leader? A good political leader is one who is capable of making decisions, determined to work for the betterment, has the willingness to manage and rectify issues, and most importantly, stand up for what is right. A political leader should not be worried about his or her position, power, and authority. He should always work for the growth of the society and should value his citizens. Every political leader should inherit the skills and research capabilities to think and act towards future growth. A successful leader should have 5 major virtues: discipline, trustworthiness, courage, humanness, and intelligence. Effective communication, honesty, a good decision maker, must be able to inspire others, must delegate tasks effectively. All of these qualities define a good political leader. But while I was researching for all of these qualities, there was a word, or rather a series of words, that I saw in abundance. These words were him, he who makes a good leader, a man with honesty. So, is it that women just don't possess the qualities of a good political leader, or does the patriarchal society not want to be led by a woman? Let's look at all these qualities one by one. According to a research done by PEW Research Center, 50% of women are more honest than 20% men. Men and women are equally hardworking. 80% of women show compassion compared to 5% of men that possess that quality. Women have also been seen to be more outgoing and creative than men. In performance skills such as working out compromises, keeping government honest, representing your interests, and standing up for what they believe, a greater percentage of women have shown to possess all these qualities. When it comes to policy matters, women are much better at dealing with social issues, which has become a need in today's world. However, when it comes to dealing with crime, public safety, defense, and national security, men have been better at handling such issues. But the question arises that in today's world, ladies and gentlemen, do we require leaders with support and are better with dealing with wars and defense? Or do we need leaders that show compassion, honesty, integrity, showcase the people's opinions, and bring up social issues in the world of climate impact, discrimination, caste, religious divides, and abuse? The opposition may try to prove their stance by sticking to the number of men in political leadership positions and conclude that women make less adequate leaders. But that is simply not true. Women possess all those qualities and skills that are required in a 21st century leader. But it is the smashing patriarchy and the stereotype of women belonging at home that keeps them from joining politics. In fact, as of 1st September 2021, there are only 26 women serving as heads of state or government in 24 countries. At the current rate, gender equality in the highest positions of power will not be reached for another 130 years. There is established and growing evidence that women's leadership in political decision-making processes improves them. For example, research on panchayats in India discovered that the number of drinking water projects in the area with women-led councils was 62% higher than in those with men-led councils. Let's take an example for one such female leader, Jacinda Ardern. The Prime Minister of New Zealand, Ardern had already sealed her position as a great leader early in her premiership of New Zealand by empathetically steering her country through the aftermath of a terror attack and the deadly eruption of a volcano. Then the COVID-19 pandemic struck, and Ardern targeted not just suppression of the virus, but its complete elimination. New Zealand, a nation of nearly 5 million people, has seen fewer than 2,700 cases and only 26 deaths. Ardern and her cabinet ministers took a 6-month, 20% pay cut in 2020 to show solidarity with people who had lost their livelihoods owing to the pandemic. Hence, having experienced the revolutionary leadership of Jhansi Ki Rani, Indira Gandhi, Jacinda Ardern, Angela Merkel, Kamala Harris, and many more unsung female leaders, it won't be incorrect to say that women, having proved their effectiveness and impact as political leaders, make equally good, if not better, political leaders. In fact, this world will only be able to handle all the issues and arising problems with an equal representation in parliament and the opinions of everyone, irrespective of gender, caste, color, and creed. With that, I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariya. Lastly, we have Priyansh Yajnik to speak against the motion. Priyansh, you have the floor for 3 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. Myself, Priyansh Yajnik. I am a student of Holy Cross School, Chedong from Gangtok, and today I am here to present my views on the topic that women do not make better political leaders than men. The main mindset of a woman was traditionally to look after their home, after their household, and be a homemaker. And despite the growth of feminism to such a great extent, surveys still show that women themselves tend to make sure that everything at home remains stable, family remains perfect. According to a PEW survey, nearly 80% women, I repeat, 80% women themselves say that they would try to stay and spend time at home nourishing their family than working for a full-time job. This shows that if women were to work as a political leader, they will always try to strike a work-life balance in some way or the other. Whereas men are more focused. They try to take decisions. They try to run out. And after the competitors and defeat their contenders. I would also like to highlight the hormonal changes and how these changes affect men and women. According to an NCBI survey, Women allow way more hormonal changes to affect their lifestyle and work, whereas men do not allow this to do so. You know, politics is like a game of chess. You get in a little bit frustration, and I, being a chess player, can personally tell you, if you are a little bit frustration, you take any decision in anger, that's it. The game slips out of your hand, and at any time it can lead to your downfall. The same thing happens with politics. If women were to take any hasty decision during such period of the leadership, it could very well lead to the downfall of the nation or the state that one governs. As I already mentioned, that women are more anxious and hasty than men. Can women take rigid and rapid steps during wars and emergencies? Well, my forthcoming examples are going to answer this question. A prominent example of this is Aung San Suu Kyi, the former state councillor of Myanmar. Her inactive responses during the genocide of the Rohingyas and the Myanmar military massacres drew criticism from all around the world. And despite being an Oxford University graduate, she wasn't able to handle the situation. As a result of which, on 1st February 2021, she was arrested and deposed in the Myanmar military coup. Another example of wrong decisions taken by a female is none other than the one in our country, our former Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. Her orders during the Operation Blue Star sent a shockwave throughout the country. In order to kill just a 200 to 250 militants, an entire troop of Indian Army was sent to Darbar Sahib and 30 other Gurudwaras. Post-operation results were horrendous. Nearly 3,000 casualties and 700 injuries were suffered by the Indian Army. This led to a severe boycott of the government's bad handling of operation and damage to holy shrine and loss of life. This led to Indira Gandhi's own assassination in October 1984. Thus, I would like to conclude by saying that despite women being an integral part of our country, society, and economy, politics is a field where men were dominant, they are dominant, and these should be dominant. Because the aggressive and fearlessness which is required for ruling a state, much less a nation, does not exist in women. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Priyansh. And with that, we conclude this round. I believe there were really good points brought up by all the participants. The views put forward were unique and interesting. However, now these views may be questioned and discussed in the invigorating rebuttal round, which we will soon commence. During this round, each member of both the teams can question any one member of the opposing team. I request all the participants to keep their questions relevant and to the point. Participants, kindly share your questions with me if you haven't already. Okay, we begin with Azma from the against team who would like to question Anamitraa.
Okay, so my question to Anamitraa is that she mentioned, about Razia Sultan and Noor Jahan. So Razia Sultan failed to defend her throne. And in the reign of Jahangir, all the political decisions were taken by Noor Jahan. Noor Jahan was behind all the political major decisions. And we all know that East India Company also entered India in the reign of Jahangir, and the rest is history. So don't you think that history is evident that women have been failure as leaders?
Thank you, Asma, for your question. So, as for that matter, गलतियां तो सबसे होती हैं, but what is important is कि हम उस इंसान को सिर्फ उस एक गलती से ना देखें, but और नजरियों से देखें. So, Noor Jahan was known for her shrewd planning and her physical strength. So, she was one of the only women who went to rescue Jahangir while he was clutched in the rebel leaders of Mabad Khan in 1626. So this is a proof that she was showcasing valor and bravery. Also, Noor Jahan was not the cause of East India Company coming into power in India. So Jahangir allowed the establishment of the factory of East India Company because of the main reason of development. The East India Company came to India with the proposal that they would do trade of silk, spices, cotton, etc. And we all know that development is the main cause of their idea of allowing East India Company to come in India was development, because as we know, trade is a way that flourishes the economy. And so if we look into it from their perspective, we can conclude that their wanting of East India Company to India was actually for the purpose of development. Moving on to Razia Sultan, she was a wise woman, an excellent administrator, brave, and a warrior. So, the following example that I will give are qualities that she portrays, and she is therefore proving that she is a good leader. So, she endowed all the qualities of a sovereign person. She was prudent, benevolent, benefactor to her kingdom, and she was a dispenser of justice, and she cherished the subject of her knowledge, and she was indeed a great warrior. Thank you.
Thank you, Anamitraa. Azma, are you satisfied with this answer?
Yes, I'm satisfied. But as she said that we should, don't you should never judge a person by one mistake, and we should forget this. But if you're a political leader, one mistake can cause you everything.
I agree, Azma, that's true. So now we have Deeksha from the team in favor questioning Tushmi.
Thank you, Diva. So my question was, how and why do you feel like pulling up a specific instance of women leaders like Indira Gandhi will prove that women in general and all around can't be better political leaders when they have had excellent achievements from facilitating the Green Revolution to the victory in the Indo-Pakistan War of 1971, also indicating that even if they do things that go south, they shouldn't be giving a room for error at all, in your opinion?
Okay, Deeksha. So, to answer your question, this is not a matter of specific incidents, but rather having an equal integration of both men and women in the political sphere. The incident in question was not brought up to highlight ineptitude of women leaders, but rather to shed light upon a major inexcusable human blunder. During the emergency, the opposition, press, courts, free speech, all were trampled over and atrocities were committed on the poor and downtrodden. Can such an incident really be chalked up to a human mistake? Many valid points have been made today about the fact about what makes women better leaders. Yet, is thinking women as better really helping us overcome the gender barriers and differences in society? The incident in question was brought up to mention how women are not necessarily better in the field, as they can make the same decisions, like you mentioned, facilitating green revolution, but also make the same mistakes that can be detrimental to the country. So it is not only wrong but downright harmful to see such major damages as small mistakes just because they were caused by women. The human right violations that took place during the emergency weren't just things going south, but the very factors that shaped the darkest hours in Indian history. At the end of it all, women politicians and leaders around the world are equally accountable to their setbacks as their male counterparts. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I'll deem it as acceptable, but the only thing is the same mistake could have been done by a man. And yep.
Thank you, Deeksha and Tushmi. Next up from the against team is Priyansh, who has a question for Arunavah. You may go ahead, Priyansh. Priyansh, you can ask your question now. Okay, I think he's having some technical issues, so we'll move on till then. Coming in next, we have Kaushal, who would like to question Deeksha.
Yeah, so my question for Deeksha was that Deeksha very well quoted as to how compassionate and other qualities women have, which make them in times of crisis or in times of any other fault lines which a nation state might face, they make them more susceptible to handling those crises as compared to their male counterparts. So my question is that we have seen in in larger population scales, whether it be the United States of America or for that matter, a lot of people here quoted the leadership of Prime Minister Ardern. But 6 months down the line, post her COVID successes, there were a lot of reverses when in a single day, New Zealand saw 22 deaths, which beat their previous record. So, how do you justify that this fact that yes, women might as well be susceptible to not handling of crises, number one, and number two, what kind of regional diversities can play as a spoil spot for women leadership to not be accepted in various parts of the world by men.
So the first one, I'll answer the first one before. You talked about how New Zealand saw weird patterns in the amount of cases of coronavirus. But I think you're forgetting a major thing is we were in India and the second wave of coronavirus was pretty bad. And remember who we are led by? We are led by a man. So I don't think that right now putting gender as in how decisions are made better is a good argument, but since I feel like women are not represented enough, we have not even had the chance to see how they control or how they make progress in that field. To your second question, of the social diversity and the regional anomalies, uh, I feel like it should and most probably doesn't affect the study's result. And not only that, it would get affected if there was something different in the way women approach things daily. But there isn't because women all around the world deal and approach issues in a similar manner. Moreover, there are still problems like domestic and sexual violence, lower pay, lack of access to education, and inadequate healthcare, which women face regardless of the region they reside in. So even though they come from different places around the world, their fundamentals and the problems they're affected by are the same, and hence it shouldn't affect the result of the studies.
Has your
Right.
question been answered, Kaushal?
Yes, Diva. Thank you.
Okay, great. Now moving on. Our next participant is Anamitraa from the team in favor to question Azma.
Yeah. So, as Azma mentioned in her speech, that women find it difficult to manage personal and professional life, and it badly affects their performance. But if we look at recent examples such as Jacinda Ardern seems to effortlessly juggle with motherhood and leadership at the same time. And the country by and the other example can be New Zealand. She became the first country to defeat the COVID-19, and that was also led by women. So, what are your views on the same?
Thank you, Anamitraa, for the question. I completely agree with you that Jacinda Ardern, led by example, like she effortlessly, juggled motherhood with leadership. But if I ask you to think of another leader who has done the same, like who was able to, balance work with leadership, I don't think so. There is any. Just because one woman did, you can't say that women can easily, balance work and leadership. But if you look at the survey by Economic Times, 61% of the women find it difficult, balance their professional life and their leadership or their, personal life. So they are unable to draw, boundaries between their professional life and their personal life. And when you are a political leader, you just cannot afford, any carelessness or any irregularity or any distraction like that. Thank you. I hope this answers your question.
Has your question been answered?
Just a small point I would make. Since we don't have a lot of political leaders at this moment, we cannot really conclude this statement by saying that it is difficult for them to handle, because the example that you gave was in relation to the corporate, but we need to have more examples to really justify the statement to become a reality.
Okay, Azma, is there anything you'd like to say to respond to that?
I hope we get many female leaders in the future so we can see that. Thank you.
Great. So next we have Tushmi opposing the motion, who will be questioning Mariya.
Okay, Mariya, so my question for you is that political scientists have found that when direct, explicit questions about women, people are asked about women leaders, many survey respondents deny their prejudice. So, this is largely due to the fact that people find it hard to admit to a belief that's seen as socially unacceptable. And this, in turn, can lead to potentially inaccurate results in the survey. So, how can you guarantee that the researchers you mentioned or your team mentioned are not affected by the social desirability bias?
All right, thank you for your question. So, firstly, I want to say that all evidences that the team provided or that that I provided weren't on the basis entirely on the basis of such surveys. Like, we used real life case studies, and also percentage. Like, if we talk about Jacinda Ardern again, then the way she handled COVID-19, and also looking at Angela Merkel, the way she handles things around in Germany. She did actually. Now she doesn't. In Germany, and the way that the numbers show it all, and it isn't that we're basing our entire argument on the basis of such surveys. It is we have actual numbers as well, along with certain case studies as well. And then secondly, a lot of the surveys that we used were based upon, like, they were questioning personality traits. Like, at least what I used, it was about personality traits that you see in a good leader. It wasn't directly whether people want to see good leaders ruling them, or if they want to see women as leaders. That wasn't the question. It was always related to personality. And then of course you have personality tests to prove that women possess certain traits that are required in good leaders, and they have shown these leadership skills in their tenure of whichever few leaders we have around the world. And I don't think you can question that. I don't think you can really call that a flaw in our argument. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
Okay, great. So now I call upon Arunavah, who would like to question Kaushal. Sir.
Okay, so my question is, your speeches and your very stance is filled with pessimism towards women rule. So I want to ask, how do you think that international politics without women will look upon women who need international support for their progress and development?
Right. Thank you so much for that question, Arunava. Well, when we see the international political spectrum, we have examples which categorically show as to why women leadership cannot at all be acceptable or cannot be accepted. Now, a simple example, and I would like to give one after another examples. As of now, as we speak, uh, in the world, the highest number of women parliamentarians sit in Ethiopia, which stands to be a sub-Saharan African country. But Ethiopia, in the past 25, 30 years, has seen 5 to 7 military coups. Now, if a woman was to take in charge of the leadership of that particular country, and there was to be a military coup for that matter, and democracy was to fail, we don't want to see another Myanmar happening. Now, drawing an analogy between Prime Minister Ardern and the Indian state of Kerala, we roughly have the same demographic figures when it comes down to population scale, diversity, etc., etc. Prime Minister Ardern initially did great work, but then there was a COVID relapse. And between all of that, there was a lot of community clashes which we saw happening between the tribal societies of New Zealand and Auckland, and as well as other communities. When we come down to Kerala, same population, but two consecutive women health ministers. And as on date, as we speak, every day we have 20,000 COVID-19 cases coming out of that very same state. Compare it to a men led state, whether it be of Uttar Pradesh, whether it be for that matter India as a whole, or for that matter the small state of Assam. We see the vaccination rates, the leadership rates, the on ground presence of the leader, and the he affecting change as we speak on ground. That is more effective. Another factor as to why women leadership does not get accepted, or there stands to be a clash, is between when it boils down to ideology. We saw, and there have been recent revelations, that during the last leg of Prime Minister Donald Trump's regime, the Speaker of the lower house in the United States, Nancy Pelosi, was directly involved in engaging with top military commanders to not allow Donald Trump to make any decisions vis-a-vis China and vis-a-vis Afghanistan. And what has happened in Afghanistan, it's all for us to see. So these are all examples. And yes, here people might say that exceptions prove the law. But at the end of the day, it's all about how we are able to comprehend a situation, especially a crisis time. And when it comes down to a crisis time, women leadership again and again and again has shown absolute failure, not only on national spectrum, but also on international spectrum.
I hope you're satisfied with the answer, Arunava.
Yes.
Great. Okay, so next we have from the against team, Priyansh, who has a question for Arunavah. Okay, I think Priyansh is still having some connectivity issues. Um,
Okay, so I have a question for Arunava. So can I ask?
yes, please go ahead, Azma.
I want to ask her that what can be done to improve women's participation in politics. What is your take on that?
I believe that a lot has to come from the society in general, because a lot of the world is male dominated, and patriarchy still exists in greater levels. And just how I mentioned in my speech, that a lot of women are not considered humans; they're not even given the proper human rights. So I think people should be more encouraging, and people should accept women, and give them a lot of resources, education, and for improving women's participation in politics. I think there should be increase in the percentage of women in politics, and they should also be given, because a lot of women come from different backgrounds, and not everyone has equal experiences, so they need different kinds of mentoring programs and educational programs, so that they can better themselves. So I think yes, society also plays a major role, so I guess that's how we can improve it.
Azma, I hope your question has been answered.
Yes, it does.
Okay. So I also have a couple of questions. So I believe that the team in favor had mentioned studies show that women are more compassionate and empathetic than men, and this is why they make better leaders. But don't you think this could be considered as a disadvantage too? Because men would be more capable of making unfavorable or harsh decisions, which is inevitable in politics. So, what's your take on this? Deeksha, would you like to answer this?
Yeah, sure, Diva. So, in contrast to men who tend to be career centric and want to maximize their return from work, women view decisions and hence their impact more holistically as a component of their overall life plan. Therefore, they're more likely to approach their careers in a self reflective way and value factors such as meaning, purpose, connection with their counterparts, and work life integration. Male leaders are statistically more likely to only stress meeting the standards, wait until the problems become more severe, and be absent during critical junctures. But as far as harsh and unfavorable decisions are required sometimes, it is important for them to be taken in a manner that takes the opinion and the needs of the affected into consideration. And I feel like since women are more vulnerable, they'll be better at that.
Okay,
I
thank
can
you.
I can add a small point to Diksha's points.
Yes, yes, go ahead.
Also, if the person is more compassionate and empathetic, we have this EI quotient, which is the emotional intelligence quotient, which is being trended as one of the important leadership criteria of a person. So I would like to mention, if a person is compassionate and empathetic, they will rather do make policies and make changes for the affected communities, the minorities, and the affected classes, and I think thereby helping the whole country at large.
I agree, Anamitraa. Thank you so much. I also have a question for the against team. So, as we know, there are several rape and assault cases, mainly of women, and people are unsatisfied with our current laws against rape. So, don't you think that having more women in politics could change that and make the punishment more severe? So, Kaushal, would you like to answer this question? Kaushal, am I audible to you? Okay, I think he has some connectivity issues. Is there anyone else from the against team who would like to answer this?
Um, I would like to.
Yes,
I
please go ahead.
agree with what you just said that the government, should have stricter laws to the safety of women, because so that women can feel safe, and can go out and work hard to in any field, in any career path. But if we see in the nations where there is safety for women, even if you see South Korea, if you take South Korea as an example, there are hardly any such cases. The women are safe, but still, we don't have any more women political leaders. We have even successful women who have done exemplary work in their field, in other fields, be it entertainment, be it fashion designing, or be it other careers. But we haven't seen, even in the nations which have less, crimes against women, we haven't seen any great political leader. So I think it's not about yeah, I do agree that the women, there should be stricter laws against about the crimes against women. But if you take that as a criteria to say that this is a reason why they're not such women leaders, so I think that's wrong. I hope that answers your
Right.
question.
Yes, it does. I understand your point of view. So, if anyone has any other questions, they may ask it, or else I think we're done with this round. So,
I did.
that concludes. Sorry?
Oh, I did have a question further
Yes,
against
yes.
whoever wants to
Go
take it
ahead.
up. Yeah. So the opposition has used very little examples to prove women's inadequacy to be good political leaders. However, what does the opposition have to say about the n number of male criminals, druggies, abusers, and mafias that join politics and are taking up leadership positions? Do you think men still are better leaders, and do they still overpower women in politics?
So I would like
Anyone
to
from
answer
the
this
answer?
question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so first of all, I would like to point out the flaw in the question, which is suggesting that the mafias, druggers, etc., are male. Although majority of them are male, female mafias also do exist. And we know Phulan Devi, who was also a bandit, and she was called the Bandit Queen. And she was a member of parliament from the Samajwadi Party. So this clearly proves that we cannot discriminate criminals on the basis of gender. The way she just mentioned mafia has to be male, it is not true. And as for how to prevent these mafias and criminals from entering politics, well, I think the answer lies with the judiciary, because the laws need to be amended in such a way that such criminals do not enter the politics. But I still repeat that you cannot say that mafias and criminals are male. We could be female as well, and I supported it with an example. So I hope that answers your question.
Just one thing I have to say, the same way I was discriminating against mafias, I think you're also discriminating against women, saying that they're not adequate leaders when you're giving like little examples. So it's just all I have to say.
But when it comes to women as great leaders, we don't really have examples. But when you see that women being mafias and druggists, we have such examples. But in terms of great leaders, we don't have any. So I think this
If
answers
I
your question.
no, if I start comparing this with the men, druggies, and mafias, I'm sorry, the list won't end. So you can't really take numbers and be like, oh, they're less number, they're more numbers, and hence they're not great leaders. That's not a reason.
In fact, I would like to just to bring some statistical balance to that, to what Mariya said. Mariya, post the breaking up of the Soviet Union, roughly 500 plus mafias in the Eastern European and the Soviet world were led by women and were governed by women. 500 plus mafias. The deadly Pablo Escobar mafia, which was eulogized in the Netflix series Narcos, post Pablo Escobar getting arrested, that mafia gang was split between his grandniece and his wife. When it comes down to the Peruvian mafias, which actually used churches as their front, that too were led by the by women. In fact, another drug lord, Charles Guzman, who is serving roughly 9 consecutive sentences in the United States for federal drug charges. Post his arrest, his mafia too was led by women, and was led by his wife, and later by his niece. And as Priyansh very well quoted the example of Putlibai, of Bandit Queen as well, who was Putlibai, who was responsible for cold-blooded murder of roughly 22 men. So it is about, when it comes down to leadership in any sort of matter, for that matter, criminalization of politics is different, and questioning the adequacy of a women leadership for their failures is different, slightly different. And if I have to say that why politics is not a convenient place for a woman, with all due respect to women, two of the greatest women leaders of the United Kingdom, Margaret Thatcher and Theresa May, who are the only two women to have led their respective parties, that being the Conservative Party, at both points of time they were rooted out of their positions by their own colleagues, which also included women member of parliaments, who brought, for that matter, the current British Prime Minister Boris Johnson to power for the Brexit demand. So it's about how convenient you make that workplace, number one. And when it boils down to criminalization, it's about how good your criminal mind is. And I think men and women can all make good criminals and killers if the society shapes them that way.
Okay, so unless anyone has anything to respond to that, I think we'll end this round. So does anyone have anything to say?
Yeah, just all I have to say is that why look at the Soviet Union when you have your own country to look upon? Some days earlier, if I'm not wrong, there was an MLA son who actually murdered like 5 farmers. So why are you looking at the Soviet Union when, okay, look at India? I mean, I haven't looked up statistics as of now. I'm not prepared with the statistics, but I'll get back to you with those as well. We look at our country, and every MLA, every MP, almost every MP, MLA, they're involved in some sort of crime. And these are men, and women are very less in India. And it's not about who's a better criminal. It's about these people are taking leadership positions. And of course, there's something that needs to be done about it. But it's also that we're in a country where we're being led by mafias and criminals. I think that if you're taking that and then you're saying that women criminals as well, I never denied it. It's just that that's no reason to say that women are inadequate.
Yeah, I would just like to conclude by saying that the debate is not about that mafias are male or females, but the discussion is the leaders that are there at the present moment are males. And so these people are doing what we are saying, all the killing, mafias and all that. So that is the basis of the discussion, that males are the leaders at the present moment. And these are the consequences that are being brought up by them. And so hence women leaders are better, and that can only be told when they really come into power. And so these debates should happen so that more women come into power, and then we can really see what's the reality.
I completely agree, Araminta. Thank you for ending on such a good note. So now we end our rebuttal round, and I think we can all agree that that was intense and thoroughly interesting. So, some incredible points were put forward by all of the participants, and we saw contrasting views today, and I hope it's given you a better perspective on the subject. So, although both teams conveyed reasonable arguments, I believe and I hope you all agree that women do have what it takes to be political leaders. Time and again, women have proved to be more than capable of roles of leadership. From Kamala Harris to Jacinda Ardern, women have exceptionally led nations. Equality plays a great role in India's evolution, and having more women in politics is the next step towards towards a more developed country. I thank everyone in the audience for being present here today, and of course, a huge thank you to all the participants who did a commendable job. The scope of our nation's development depends largely on today's youth and their opinions. It is encouraging to see students discuss a subject like this, and I believe it has inspired any other students in the audience today. I hope this debate has been informative and, of course, fun for all of you. On behalf of all the participants, I thank the Pinkish Foundation for giving us this platform to share our views. And once again, thank you, everyone.